John 18:19. This is when you teach leading up to Easter. Let me here's everybody who teaches has to deal with the same thing. I'm sure I'm not the only one. You do realize that like the entire Gospels are not the entire one, but like a third or two-thirds is over a third of the Gospels is written about the last week of Jesus' life. So like almost everything we teach is about the last week of his. I knew it was you cafe people. See? See, some of you don't know John Laurie. He's a cafe guy who steals my Bible. So.
It was actually on the coat rack.
Thanks, John. Oh, you want yours back now? I wanted them both. Listen, if you want a guy who's real fancy, you came to the wrong place. So, what did I say to go to? John 18:19. But I want you to catch this though. Everything that we know almost about the life of Christ is the last week. And so when you're teaching up towards Easter, up towards Resurrection Sunday, you have so much because you can't just say, well, we'll do Palm Sunday and Easter. Well, what about the other, X amount of ridiculous amounts of verses and chapters that are all about the last days of Christ's life? So here's your homework assignment. Man, you need to read everything about those last weeks. And that means you need to get to the end. It all starts with the Palm Sunday, when you look at the last week of Jesus' life. So tack off the end of the Gospel of Mark and read it, the end of Matthew and read it, the end of Luke and read it. And then when you go to John, you actually have to start in John chapter 13. So John chapter 13 begins the last week of Jesus' life. So it's volumes on the last week of Christ's life. Get into it. And the reason I want you to do this, take this season and seriously say, Lord, I want you to meet me in a strong way this season. I do not want to just exist. I want you to impact me. So I want us to see one part. Let me give you a little background of Jesus before Pontius Pilate. This is a great encounter. When you follow the life of Christ at the last week of his life, he goes. It's all this. It's a goofy few hours. It all happens in hours. It happens from the Last Supper, then to the Garden of Gethsemane, then the arrest, then the trial before the Jewish high priest and the Sanhedrin, and then they go right from there to the Roman courts, which is Pilate. Then from Pilate, he's sent over to Herod. Then Herod had some fun with him. He sends him back to Pilate. Pilate is confused by him continually, and then Pilate just gives up, washes his hands, sends him to be crucified. They go. This whole thing takes all evening, night, and day. Jesus never sleeps. Nobody seems to sleep this day. And then when it's all done, and he's on the cross, and he's crucified, and he dies, and then he's buried, then celebration of Passover actually starts at that time. So that's in a nutshell what happened in those last 24 hours of the life of Christ. They're very, very, very important. But I want us to look today at one simple thing in the encounter between Jesus and Pilate. Pilate was, let me just put you in that culture a little bit. Jesus was a nobody who became popular. Right? I mean, he has no significance. There's nothing significant about his birth, his upbringing, anything. He's just a guy. He's a poor Jewish guy, and he's gained some popularity for the last 3 years, actually tremendous amount of popularity. And he's hated by the religious leaders. And he's hated by the religious leaders because he's claiming to be the Messiah. He's claiming to be the Son of God. He's claiming to be God. And so that's what's going on here. There's this tremendous zeal for the law by the religious leaders and a zeal for the Lord in their view of Yahweh. And then there's Jesus, who claims to be the fulfillment of everything they're looking for and claims to be God, which is blasphemy in the ultimate sense in the mindset of the Jewish religious leaders of that day. So you have them tremendously at odds, so much at odds that they want to kill him. So they arrest him, they take him to trial, and they come up with, this is what the religious leaders of the day found him guilty. You know what they found him guilty of? They found him guilty of blasphemy. That means they found him guilty of claiming to be equal to God, claiming him to be God. But the problem was that they had lost their ability for capital punishment. They couldn't kill somebody. Of course they could, but it wouldn't be legal and they would face other things because the Jewish state at that time was under occupation, under the rulers of the Roman Empire. So Rome ruled that area. And so their laws superseded, in some ways, the Jewish laws, the Sanhedrin laws. And so the religious leaders wanted to kill Jesus, but they couldn't. So therefore, they needed to involve the Roman government in this whole thing in order to be able to get rid of this guy, Jesus. So therefore, they take him to Pilate. And that's where we pick it up at the end of John 18, starts in 28. I'm going to do this, and I think it's worth doing. I debated about doing it, but from John 18, 28 through 19:16, that's kind of what I want you to see here. I want you to focus on, as we read this, I want you to focus on, you see, Jesus came for multi-reasons, but it can really be summed up in this. It says he came to destroy the works of the devil. That's one clear reason he came. And he came to seek and to save the lost. And he came, these are not like 1, 2, 3, they're all the same thing. And he came to do the works of the Father. And he came to fulfill the Passover lamb. Okay, so he had a clear purpose why he came. And I want you to see that he had many opportunities in his life to get sidetracked. Many opportunities. But there were no greater opportunities to get sidetracked than right leading up from the Last Supper to the cross. If there was a time you needed to get out, this was the time, right? Somebody say, come on, I am totally getting out. Right? This was not a good time. He was, from the moment they had the Last Supper together, he knew from that moment he was headed straight to the cross. He was headed straight to the cross in order that we could have life, in order that we could have fellowship with God. He was going to create this void, this vacuum that was there. He was going to separate, to connect the two and rid the vacuum because of his death, because of his burial, because of his resurrection, because of his life. We therefore could come in and have ultimate life with the Father. So he was heading for that direction. He was clearly aware of the Father God, and he was clearly aware of us, and he was going to become the mediator between the two. But it must take the death. So that's where he's heading. He's focused on it. But I want you to see that he wasn't wishy-washy. Not at all. And there's so many lessons in this for us. We have a call on our life, and we get terribly distracted. I'm pretty glad Jesus didn't get distracted the last few hours of his life, right? He just like, I'm getting kind of bored. I'm going to go over here. Oh, look, a puppy. I'm running after it. Whatever. He didn't do that. And so I want you to get into the Word. I'm actually going to show you a little video clip of the Scripture. It's not. So let's just watch it. It takes a few minutes. I want you to settle in though, and I want you to watch and listen to Jesus and Pilate, and I want you to see the steadfastness of Jesus and his love for the Father and his love for us. So go ahead.
Early in the morning, Jesus was taken from Caiaphas' house to the governor's palace. The Jewish authorities did not go inside the palace, for they wanted to keep themselves ritually clean in order to be able to eat the Passover meal. So Pilate went outside to them and asked,
What do you accuse this man of?
We would not have brought him to you if he had not committed a crime.
Then you yourselves take him and try him according to your own law.
We are not allowed to put anyone to death.
This happened in order to make come true what Jesus had said when he indicated the kind of death he would die. Pilate went back into the palace and called Jesus.
Are you the king of the Jews?
Does this question come from you? Or have others told you about me?
Do you think I'm a Jew? It was your own people and the chief priests who handed you over to me. What have you done?
My kingdom does not belong to this world. If my kingdom belonged to this world, my followers would fight to keep me from being handed over to the Jewish authorities. No. My kingdom does not belong here.
Are you a king, then?
You say that I am a king. I was born and came into the world for this one purpose: to speak about the truth. Whoever belongs to the truth listens to me.
And what is truth?
Then Pilate went back outside to the people and said to them,
I cannot find any reason to condemn him, but according to the custom you have, I always set free a prisoner for you during the Passover. Do you want me to set free for you the King of the Jews?
They answered him with a shout. Barabbas was a bandit. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him whipped. The soldiers made a crown out of thorny branches and put it on his head. Then they put a purple robe on him and came to him and said, Long live the King of the Jews. And they went up and slapped him. Pilate went back out once more and said to the crowd,
Look, I will bring him out here to you to let you see that I cannot find any reason to condemn him. Look, here is the man.
So Jesus came out, wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe.
Crucify him!
Crucify him!
You take him then and crucify him. I find no reason to condemn him.
We have a law that says he ought to die because he claimed to be the Son of God.
When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid. He went back into the palace and asked Jesus,
Where do you come from?
but Jesus did not answer.
You will not speak to me. Remember, I have the authority to set you free, and also to have you crucified.
You have authority over me. Only because it was given to you by God. So the man who handed me over to you is guilty of a worse sin.
When Pilate heard this, he tried to find a way to set Jesus free.
If you set him free, that means you are not the Emperor's friend. Anyone who claims to be a king is a rebel against the Emperor.
Early in the morning.
Stop there. I want you to see this, people. I want you to see the Messiah. I want you to see his love for the Father. I want you to see his love for us. I want you to see that he wasn't confused. I want you to see that he wasn't tricked. I want you to see that he wasn't killed. He gave up his life. I want you to see that this was the Christ on a mission from God who nobody was going to stop him. And I want you to see it in light of the Father and of you. You got to see this. The connection between the two. The Messiah pleasing the Father. The Messiah dying for you. I mean, that clear connection. There's two things I want you to see in this time before Pilate. First of all, understand this, because sometimes our picture of Pilate, for whatever reason, like growing up, he was always this chubby guy who... Was he that for you? I mean, I have no idea why, but he was always this kind of befuddled, lousy rule. Man, this guy was mean and awful. There's some secular history that's out there on him. He was a lunatic. This was not a guy you wanted to mess with. He killed people. He was ruthless. He was a bad guy. And so he had no fear of killing people, right? This was just like his thing. He was nuts. It's so interesting to me that when he faced Jesus, everything changed about him. That he was paranoid, that he was confused, that he didn't know what was going on. He didn't want Jesus to die. Now, when you read other accounts in Luke and in Matthew, you see two things. First of all, the accusation. He says, what's the accusation against him? Because that's part of Roman law. You have to have the accusers have to actually tell why you want to kill this guy. And the accusations were kind of threefold. They said, he's stirring up problems. Secondly, is interesting, they accused him he doesn't pay taxes. Isn't that funny? Came into question was his tax return forms. So we'd like to see Jesus reveal his tax returns, and that was going to be what was going to catch him all up. But isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that they accuse him of not paying his taxes? However, we actually know that Jesus paid his taxes, don't we? He came public with his records, and he paid him out of like how he did it twice. One is he paid it out of a fish's mouth. That's a cool way to pay your taxes. Can we do that like in a month? Can we all go fishing, catch a few fish, rip a coin out of his mouth, say, here, my taxes are free. And he clearly said that it's okay to pay taxes. One of my least favorite verses in the Bible is where Jesus said, it's all right to pay taxes. Why didn't he say don't pay taxes? But, he doesn't. But interestingly, Jesus didn't let anybody have an excuse to accuse him of any earthly wrongdoing. He had no earthly wrongdoing. It's a good point for us. If you're being accused of things you did illegally because you were just didn't like that law. Listen, it's not being a martyr. That's being disobedient. Okay, so that's just a little aside there. But then they accused him of being a king, and therefore, if you're the Messiah, you're a king, and therefore that disobeys Roman law. Here's what Pilate found when he tried him. There's nothing wrong with this guy. Nothing wrong with him. Nothing. Which is very important. So the only reason that Jesus was crucified was because he was a Messiah. It's the only reason. It was the only thing wrong with him, if you could say that's wrong with him. I want you to hear the only reason he was crucified was because he claimed to be Messiah, because he was Messiah. And so, but watch how he deals with Pilate in two instances. One is just a fun one. I love this thing in chapter 19. They go on to say, Pilate's kind of getting frustrated here at the end, and he says, "Do you refuse to speak to me?" Pilate said, "Don't you realize I have power either to free you or to crucify you?" Verse 11 of chapter 19. Jesus answered, "You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above." He's basically saying, dude, you got nothing on me unless my Father gives it to you. I mean, you talk about, I debated about teaching this because one of my favorite things to teach is Jesus was totally in control of the last week of his life. Totally in control. Even here, before the very guy who says yes or no to death, he's like mocking him. You don't say this to the judge, right? You go to sentencing court before the judge, and the judge says, "Aren't you going to talk to me?" And you don't say anything, right? You're going to get sentenced. You have a range of sentencing. And finally the judge says, "Listen, don't you realize that I got power to sentence you?" And you come back and said, "Listen, you're an elected official." Yeah, okay, that wouldn't be good, would it, Henry? That would not be a good thing. Like, yeah, listen, I'm going to campaign against you, and you're going to lose next election, right? I mean, you would just like, yeah, dude, you will not be voting in the next election. So you don't talk like that, but he was so bold because he was focused on his call. I want you to see two reasons for this. I want to get to you today. Focused on the call. One is because you have to have confidence that the Lord has your back because he's focused on his call. And secondly, you got to be focused on your call. We got to be focused on what the Lord's called us to. And so we've got to have the same steadfastness that Jesus has. Watch how come he can have this. Let's go back to chapter 18. And let's go back to where he's Pilate's questioning him back and forth, and he says, "What is it you have done?" And verse 36, one of my favorite verses, Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world." This is what set him apart from every other king that's ever lived. His kingdom was not of this world. Then he puts on this little tag that I kind of laugh at. "If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jews." I'm thinking, Jesus, come on. You don't want to go there, right? I mean, would you want the disciples to be the ones protecting you? No. So, but he got it right when he said, "My kingdom is not of this world." We talked about a few weeks ago, and I want you to get this. You're like, Rick, you're kind of just talking to us the last few weeks. That's because I feel like I just need to have all these chats because I think we're in a season where it's not to, I'm all for doing fun stuff and things like that, but I think right now we're at a serious time where we got to get a hold of what the Lord's doing. And a few weeks ago I challenged us, we have to get a hold of the fact and settle that Jesus is Lord. We've got to settle that. And we have to settle, rock down the fact that this world is not my home. We've got to get that. We're coming into it, we're in a season, of course, in our nation and the nations of the world, where, man, it just is a mess. Is it easy to offend people today? Yeah. Is it easy to get into debates with people today? Yeah. Is it easy to just get so mad at people today you hate them? Yes. It's not just political stuff, but political stuff fuels. What political stuff does is it brings out all the trash inside of us. I want you to hear that. When elections go on, I've actually been in 3 different countries during election season. Just so you know, we're the best here. Is that not true, Peter? We're the most civil elections in the world. You say, you got to be kidding me. Listen, go to Africa go to Kenya during election season. What's it like? It's crazy, isn't it? It's nuts. Actually, the last elections, one elections, 2 ago, a civil war broke out, and thousands were killed after the elections in Kenya. But I want you to see what elections do, what politics do, is they reveal trash inside of us. You got to see that, because what it should do is your heart should break for people, not get irritated at politicians. All politicians do is reveal the junk. That's all they do. So when you see junk come out, have your heart break. Have your heart break for our nation. And then here's how, the only way you can deal with this, people, is if you say, my kingdom is not of this world. You've got to get that. You got to get that. You got to get, my kingdom is not of this world. Because if you don't get that, you will fight like everybody else. You will be just as ridiculous as everybody else. You'll be just as scattered as everybody else. What's that? Andrew, if you have that little slide up there, this is the season to roll around and play in the mud with pigs. You like that? Some of you like to pig wrestle. The problem with pig wrestling is, fire that thing up because I want to get this thing right. My old pig wrestling days. Anybody here ever raise pigs? Where's my pig raisers? Like, well, yeah, there we go. You got to have pig farmers here. We're in the pig farming world. All right, well, maybe that's not coming up. But anyways, the problem with wrestling with pigs is you both get dirty and the pig likes it, right? You know that. You wrestle with the pigs, you both come out stinking like crap, and the pig's happy. Listen, people, stop wrestling with pigs. We've got to, here's how what we've got to do. We've got to say, my kingdom is not of this world. This is not my place. This is not my goal. My kingdom is not of this world. I must see things higher. I've got to. Go to Hebrews 11, and this is where I want to end this with today. Hebrews 11, this is the hall of faith, as they call it. These are the greatest men and women that the world has ever seen. But they all had one thing in common. Hebrews 11 says something. Let me get to the end of it here. When they all went to their grave, they all had something in common. Watch this in verse 13. All these people, and he's talking about everybody. This is Peter, and this isn't Peter. This is Abraham and Isaac and all the people of faith. He said all these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw and welcomed them from a distance. Watch this, though. And they admitted that they were aliens and strangers on earth. People who say such things show they are looking for a country of their own. If they'd been thinking about the country they had left, they would have opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. Watch this. People, you are not a resident of this country. You're not a resident of this planet. We've got to get that down. It's got to affect everything we do. Now, we've got to see that my kingdom that I'm a part of is higher. There's higher standards. There's higher power. There's higher governance. There's higher judicial system. It's higher, and I have come under that rule. And I have left focus of just what's in front of me, and I have gone higher. And watch this, because when you do this, when you see that you have a greater call than just what's in front of you, the wrestling with the pigs, when you have a greater call than that, you rise above, and you can go through anything. Now, Jesus, watch this. I really would call this is the two-kingdom tension we live in, and it is a legit tension. It's a two-kingdom tension, because I don't care what you try to tell me, I'm living on this earth, right? Anybody else with me? Yeah. Right? I'm living on this earth. That means I deal with everything on this earth. So I'm living on this earth, and I'm living in a heavenly kingdom. It's a two-kingdom tension. It is a legit tension. But here's what I would challenge you with today. See it as a tension, not as a settling in it. So therefore, we live in this world. We absolutely do. But we live as aliens and strangers who have a higher governance. a higher rule. I want to challenge you this on two fronts. One is because we've got to lead when people are just wrestling with pigs. Got to see that, people. Our whole nation is in the pig pen right now, and it's muddy, and it's full of all kinds of stuff. It's bad, and everybody wants to jump in and just wrestle. Don't! Instead, lead. Lead people out of the muck. Clean them up when they get out. Lead out of that. And also, as you're following whatever the call is that God has for you right now, stay focused. And the only way you'll stay focused is to not get in a fight with Pilate. If Jesus had gotten in a debate with Pilate, it might have made good, whatever, Fox News and CNN, it might have been cool. But it wouldn't have accomplished the call that Christ had on him. Do not just get in. It's for this world, I've got to win here, I've got to win there. No, you've got to see the call on your life, which is ultimately to worship God and to love people. And then it starts working out in details. But I want you to see that, people. I want you so much to see that Christ has called us with different eyes, very spiritual eyes, so that we can live in a very earthy world. It's not a disconnect. We're not floating around. Listen, we're not in some crazy thing. We're here, and we better be here, or else this here is in trouble. But we're not focused on here. The two kingdom tension. Recognize the two kingdom tension, but realize that everything from you and your rule comes from above. It just does, and that's also where you're going. I want to pray, and we're going to take some time and worship. And I want to pray for us that we would be different. I so much want to be different. I want this church to be different. I want every person here to be different. I want everybody who knows you to say, Pilate. Was Pilate confused by Jesus? Yeah. And I want everybody who knows you to be a little bit confused by you. That's like the greatest compliment when somebody can't figure you out. Embrace it. When they're intrigued, when they ask you questions, when they don't get it. How can you not, hate that person? How can you do, I don't get it. Why, let them be confused. Why will they be confused? Because your citizenship is not here. Your citizenship is in heaven, and you're here as an ambassador. You're a really good ambassador. So get the tension, the two kingdom tension, but don't live in the mud. Two kingdom tension, people, that we win with. So my challenge is it's a lifelong challenge. There's really no call today except get a hold of what the Lord's calling you to. Get a hold of it. Go through it so steadfastly because you know that you can't lose on this earth if you're staying focused on the second calling, which is way higher. Father, I may just say to you people, I just feel like I slightly just ranted a whole lot and was a little disorganized. But I just want you to get this. So get it. Get whatever I was trying to say. Can you do that? Get it. I'm telling you, God's calling us to something very special. We cannot miss it. I don't want you to. I'm so worried that the church over the next 6 months will look like a fool in America. I don't want us to. Do realize everybody wants somebody to lead us out of this, and only those who are following the Lord can do it. And it's us. It's us who are called for. So during this burial, resurrection season, man, see it all as God's calling me higher. He's created a way for me to have a relationship with Him. He's calling me so much higher. Father, do that. Father, take your Spirit and drive it home to us today. Drive it home. Drive it home, Lord. Have us be very focused on you. Have us not be divided in any way, in our mind, in our spirits, in any of those things. And have us be determined to walk with you. Determined. Thank you, Jesus. Even as we take some time now, Lord, speak to us as we focus on you, Lord. Hallelujah. Just take a little bit of time and just let the Lord let that sink in. Coming out of this thing leading people. You're going to be leading.
and all the poor and powerless, and all the lost and lonely, and all the thieves who come confess and know that you are holy, and know that you are holy, and all will sing out hallelujah, and we will cry out hallelujah. And all the hearts who are content, and all who feel unworthy, and all who heard with nothing will know that you are holy, and all will sing out hallelujah, and we will cry out hallelujah, and all will sing out hallelujah, and we will cry out hallelujah. Shout it, go on and scream it from the mountain. Go on and tell it to the masses. He is God. Yeah. Shout it. Go on and scream it from the mountains. Go on and tell
Jesus, when he was praying right before he went to the cross, he prays for us. He prays for us and says, I've given them your word, and the world has hated them. For they are not of the world any more than I am of the world. My prayer is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one. Then he goes on and he continues to pray, and he says, my prayer is not for just those who are at that time. My prayer also is for those who will believe in me through their message. People, that's us. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus prayed for you and me. He says that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so the world may believe that you have sent me. And so our call and our prayer is that of Jesus. Live in two worlds at the same time, with your eyes above and with your hands below, reaching out to everybody in need, but totally focused on the kingdom that is to come. So, and we can be done, we can just keep worshiping, but listen, take these weeks and get a hold of what Christ did for you and what he continues to do for you on a daily basis. God bless you. We'll just keep going back in here.
crucial skin.